All right, we continue then with the tributes this evening. We speak to Dr. Allan Boesak, another struggle icon and someone who would have worked very closely in some of the key political developments in our country with the late Mr. Lekota. A very good evening to you, Dr. Boesak, and thank you so much for your time. And certainly when you listen to the different messages of condolences that are really being sent to the family, you can get the sense of the weight of this loss for the country. Let's speak about your reaction.
Oh, absolutely. Good evening to you and your listeners. I mean, whatever words we find will not be enough to describe the role that this man has played, the weight and the integrity he brought to the struggle for justice, the courage that he displayed in so many different ways, the leadership that he was able to give, the way in which he was able to sort of bound friendship with comradeship and participation in the struggle. A truly remarkable man. And I really feel a sense of deep loss when I heard this morning that Dr. Lekota has passed away.
As I speak to you tonight, I'm looking at a picture of yourself and him at the UDF Million Signature campaign, and one of the many moments you two would have, you know, cross paths, work together. Let's talk about some of the key political moments you've shared.
Well, you know, the first moment that I met him, just as he was off the island, and somebody said to me, "You have to meet this guy." And what struck me is here is a man who would spend all of these years on the island, and the first moment he talked to me about the UDF, he says, "Now you have made this call. We have to start this thing. What do we do together?" And he was a planner. He was a strategist. He was full of immense energy, and he was ready to work. I mean, I would have thought if you had been on the island for that long, you would want to sort of have a little bit of rest, give your head a little space, spend some time with your loved ones, and then you would say, but no. For Dr. Lekota, he understood the critical stage that we were in, and that at that point, it was not really for him to say, let me recover first. He rather said, let me use the energy that I gained by being with people on the island, in the struggle, learning from them, being inspired by them, and immediately plow all of that into the struggle. I mean, that was impressive. That's the one thing. I mean, the photo that's been going around all day, he was one of the initiators of that million signature thing, because he thought if we could gather 1 million signatures, I'm not sure to this day that we ever got there. But what struck me again was the energy that he put into it, the way in which he planned my personal appearances at key positions ever, and how in that working together for the struggle at very serious moments, understood that the building of personal relationship is just as important as building this comradeship for the struggle. It was a remarkable man. Of course, with the Delmas trial, I was able to sort of keep in touch with him. The Foundation for Peace and Justice helped a little bit for the family and for himself at that point, but it went way beyond that. It was never incidental. It was always his ability to, whatever was happening, to put that within the wider framework of the struggle, and he was a visionary.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Doc. And pardon me for coming in there. There are some people who've described him as a man who's been straightforward. We've also, you know, in some of the interviews, you knew what his thoughts were on a matter. Certainly, you could never guess. And there's been this deliberate effort on his part for all of us to know where he stood when it comes to various moments in our country. What do you think drove him? What informed this political posture over time?
I think he understood the seriousness of the struggle. He also understood the desires and the aspirations of our people. And he knew that those aspirations were legitimate. He also knew what it meant to sacrifice for the struggle. He also saw coming like me from the Black consciousness movement, how deep all of these ideals interlocked. For him, like it was for me, it was not some kind of traumatic break from the Black consciousness movement to the open African National Congress line of thinking. And for him, what he saw in our people, what he saw in the willingness to sacrifice for so many young people in terms of where they were in their lives, that was what made him decide, if I were to be in the struggle, I have to be there authentically. It added immense authority to what he was trying to do and trying to say. The fact that he was so open, that he was so clear. With Dr. Lekota, you knew what you saw was what you get. What you heard was what he genuinely felt. And he didn't say things to hurt people. He didn't say things to offer some political theater or to gain some political point. Whenever he made a view clear, it was because he thought there is a goal that we must reach, there is a way in which we must do this, we must be honest with each other because we have to be honest with our people. And that connection was always in his mind. And that is why he said the things that he said. And I always sort of really knew that when he spoke, it came both from a mind that strategically thought about how to deal with this issue, how to say this, but it also came from a heart that was wholeheartedly in the struggle and filled with love for his people.
And over the next couple of days, there'll be a lot of talk about his legacy and how South Africa begins to honor him. How would you say we can do that correctly?
You know, the first thing I would say is it would be a huge mistake and tragic if we would judge Dr. Lekota's contribution to the struggle by what happened to Cope. Cope has now dwindled to almost nothing, but that is not Dr. Lekota. So his legacy is not caught up in what happened towards the end of his life. His legacy, for me, is expressed in what he has been all of his life. The fact that he took that courageous step of sort of being the first to step away from the ANC, and with all of the consequences that that had, both for the party and for himself and for the people around him. But I think he then sort of drew a line in the sand and he said, this ANC that I see now is no longer the ANC in which I recognize myself, or Mandela, or Tambo, or all of the great ones that went before him. And he said, I would rather take this uncertain, risky, dangerous step of moving in a new direction than stay in a place where I cannot be myself, where I cannot wholeheartedly support, where I cannot pour out the love and the sacrificial moments for my people into this movement. And instead of being sitting there torn by all sorts of loyalties, small loyalties, he took the greater loyalty, the loyalty to his people and to the ideals of the struggle was greater than the loyalty to a specific organization. And one has to admire him for that. And so I'm hoping that South Africa's people will think of Dr. Lekota as one who set a trail, who blazed the trail where others were too afraid and too cautious and too hesitant to do something when they begin to understand that things are going wrong, fundamentally wrong in the organization that they have served so long. And so Cope is not his life. His life is in the struggle, and his life will live on in the legacy and in the dreams and the hopes of his people and this generation that can now look back that there was a man in our midst who personified the best in all of us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boesak, for your time, and condolences to you as well, you know, on the loss of someone that you would have worked with so closely at some point in your life. I appreciate your time. That's Dr. Allan Boesak there speaking to us about the passing of Mr. Mosiuoa Lekota.